As we continue our coverage of Flight 3407 on this somber day, we remember those who tragically lost their lives. One of the 50 people who died, Lauren Maurer.
15 years after the crash, Lauren's father, Scott, keeps her legacy alive by fighting hand in hand with officials and other victims' families for continued airline safety. Scott joins us now to talk more about this. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for the invite.
So here we are 15 years later. I just want to ask you, how are you and your family doing today?
We're managing. This is a difficult day, obviously, not just for me, but for all of our family members. And my wife and I are trying to spend as much quiet time as we can reflecting on many accomplishments of our daughter.
Scott, today, the Majority Leader Chuck Schumer issued a video. He was not able to be at the memorial here in Clarence, but issued a video essentially assuring you and other families that your fight continues on Capitol Hill, and assuring you and other families that specifically the pilot training aspect of that bill will remain. When you hear something like that, does it give you some kind of solace?
Well, we're very appreciative of the leadership of Senator Schumer, and yes, we had a video conference meeting with him at 11 o'clock this morning where we went over those details. So it's not just the pilot requirements that he's fighting to keep intact; it's all of the provisions that were included in that 2010 safety bill. So we can't thank him enough, and also the entire Western New York representatives, the congressmen and congresswomen in your area.
Scott, if I may, and actually your response there, your answer to my question reminded me of just last week. We had Brian Higgins in our studio talking about the effort, and he said, and he'd been a legislator, been in Congress for 20 years, and he said, your and other families' fight on Capitol Hill for these kinds of regulations was probably the biggest and most effective, most impactful in his lengthy congressional career. When you hear something like that, a man who spent 20 years on Capitol Hill saying your fight and the fight of other families of 3407 was one of the most substantial, what does that make you feel?
Well, Brian and all of the congressional members that supported us, they are special people. The one thing that my takeaway personally from this thing is that, a citizen advocacy group can, in fact, make a difference. And to me, that's a very rewarding thing for all Americans. The frustrating part of it is, people continue to try and want to make changes. And so that pushback is a real challenge for us.
This is something you and the other families have been fighting for since then, 15 years now, and that fight continues. Why is that so important when it comes to the reauthorization and the other safety measures in place, why it is so important to keep fighting for this so it doesn't happen again?
Well, I guess I'll simply answer that by saying you don't want to live the life my wife and I have to live and the other family members. An airline tragedy is like no other, and we don't want to see something like that happen to any other family. So, all of this work is our way of honoring those that we've lost and hopefully preventing another tragedy from occurring. And here we are, 15 years down the road, and it seems like this is working.
And it does, thankfully, seem like it's working thanks to your efforts and the efforts of other families. Do you see this, Scott? Because what you said, I think, was really important there. You keep getting this pushback from the airline industry or from lobbyists or from whoever. I'm assuming you expect that to continue because the fight in you and the other families of the victims of 3407, you don't see that fight going anywhere anytime soon.
You're correct. It's unfortunate, but businesses do what they feel like they have to do, and in a roundabout way, they feel like they know better on some of these type of situations. But we listen to experts like Captain Sullenberger and First Officer Skiles and Senator Duckworth. These people, they lived it. They know what it takes to be safe in that cockpit. And so we listen to those people and know that, we're listening to the correct ones and keep pushing forward. But every 5 years when there's an FAA reauthorization, it's another opportunity for the industry to try and push back and get some changes.
Well, Scott Maurer, that is all the time we have this afternoon. We want to thank you so much for taking your time out of this day, this hard day, to talk with us. And we just want to say we're thinking of you and your family and all the other families.
Well, thank you for saying that, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Be well, Scott. Thanks.